Well, welcome, and we'll start off with our bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asot b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
And let's go and see if I can find the text quickly. Okay. So this actually was a Torah Tvima. It's open to that. So wish me luck, and we can try this. And at least I did work on this, and hope that you actually find it quite interesting. So remember, Torah Tvima takes what we are doing, which already, of course, is a movement to deconstruct the Torah, and it takes us a step further in this deconstruction. And from time to time, we've taken a look at it, but on the other hand, I want to make sure that in general we progress along with the Torah text and the Rashi text, and we should live long enough. If we ever get through all the Rashi on the Torah, we'll go back and take a look at Torah Tmimas. So we should live to well past 120 if we do that at the rate of half an hour a day, or approximately. Oh, by the way, I need to remind you, since Sunday is Tisha B'Av, there is no study of Torah on Tisha B'Av. However, I will try and let you know, we are allowed to study the book of Job or subjects that are connected to Tisha B'Av. So, for example, there's a Midrash Rabbah on the book of Lamentations, and that's pretty interesting. So maybe we'll do that. If I'm up to it, we'll take care of that on Sunday morning. So here we go. So this is the verse. This is verse 16 here, which says, "Va'atzaveh et shoftechem," and I commanded your judges, ba'etahi lemor, at that time, saying, "Shamoa bein achechem," hear out between your brothers, ushvatatem tzedek, and judge them with righteousness. Make sure that you judge them righteously. Bein ish uvein achiv, between a man and his brother, and between his ger. Rashi had an interesting interpretation of ger, which normally is understood as a non-Jew who has chosen to associate with the Jewish people. That's the pshat meaning. Rashi shows an interpretation from some other roots of this, like la'agor, which means to collect, meaning basically his opponent, the one who has gathered material against him, something like that. But let's get back now into Torah Tanima. So it is going to be a little bit of a puzzle. So, va'atzaveh et shoftechem, I commanded your judges. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So this is a quotation from Sanhedrin, from Tractate Sanhedrin, page 7b. Said Rabbi Yochanan, Azhara ladayan. This is a warning to a judge. Keneged makel uritzuah tehei zariz. In facing a stick and a strap, be punctilious. Be very careful. So, this obviously it's not a clear statement. It lends some meaning. I can think of maybe at least one, perhaps more, but basically saying you have a lot of responsibility, you have an ability to inflict punishment, and you need to be careful about it, right? Or it could mean don't hesitate in the need to do it. That if you have to, in fact, be punitive, you need to be punitive, and don't be afraid of that. I mean, these are possibilities. We'll see where Torah Tamima takes this, and he, of course, may take it in a very, very different direction. But at least that's what it suggests to me as I read this pshat, the straightforward meaning. So here we go. Katav b'chidushay agadot, in this work called Chidushay Agadot, and I'm trying to think of who the author is. You find this commentary in the back of the Talmud, and I'm trying to think. I think the author's name is Shlomo Luria, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah.
And this is his language. In other words, he's going to quote Dikdek Lomar, right? He is careful to say, Ba'etahi, that at that time, Sheba Oto Hador, that in that particular generation. So when it says Digdek Lomar, possibly we're speaking about Moses here, that Moses was careful to say at that particular time that in that generation, Haya Tsarich Leziruz Hazeh, that he needed to encourage, give them this kind of encouragement, al hamakel uritzuah, regarding the stick and the strap, shahayu sarvanim, because they were, sarvan is like someone who doesn't want to do what you're telling them to do. So stubborn, but stubborn in this sort of negative kind of way. Uva alei meriva, and they were constantly contesting. They were arguing all the time. Moshe Katuv Lamala, as is written above in Deuteronomy, Moses says, Echa Esa Levadi, how is it possible for me to bear alone? Torchachem, your burden, Umasa'echem, and carrying you, Verivchem, and your arguments, right? The constant quarreling that you're doing. Because that's actually the introduction of the appointment of judges to assist Moses in this process. So Chidushei Agadot is tying together this particular statement of Rabbi Yochanan to this initial statement. Going on. Ad Kanishalo, and that's the end of the quote. That's the quote from Chidushei Agadot. But Ein Zimuva Arklal, and Torah Tamima says this isn't very clear. This, understanding exactly what is he trying to say here. Shaharei Kama V'Chama Mitzvot Tziva Moshe Az Ba'etahi, because Moses made many commandments, commanded quite a number of commandments at that particular time. V'Gam Ma Shekatuv Shelachen Nitma'u Az Hashoftim, and not only that, when Chidushei Agadot said, for this reason, Lachen, for this reason, Nitma'u appointed us, at that time were appointed these judges. These judges were appointed at that particular time. And Nu'uvar, that's not so clear either. Sha'arei mitzvot minui dayanim, because the commandment, mitzvot, of appointing judges, he mitzvah ladorot. It's an ongoing mitzvah. It's a mitzvah for generations. It isn't just that particular time. It needs to be done constantly. The kach seder yishuv ha'olam dorish, because that's exactly what the proper, literally means the inhabitation of the world requires. So what it's saying essentially, I believe, he says, this is what society necessitates. If you're going to have a society, you have to have judges. You have to have a system of justice in place. And he says also, there's no clarification. It's not made clear at all. But what's the point? Why the need to say you've got to be punctilious about it, right? You've got to go and make the extra effort. It would have been enough simply to command them, that these or itam, maybe itam, that with them would be these instruments of the judges, makel v'ritzua, that the instrument of a judge is the fact that he's able to enforce the law, that is the stick and the strap. Rosh Perek Mishpatim, maybe it's what he's saying, Ukamoshe Katavnu, the way and what we wrote, referring to what we wrote at the beginning of the Parsha of Mishpatim, the Elah HaMishpatim, and these are the ordinances, Asher Tasim Lifnehem, that you shall place before them. And the Rashi, I believe Rashi, based on, of course, rabbinic interpretations, says, Elu Klei Hadayanim. These are the instruments, of the judges. So the strap and the stick are in a sense the instruments by which the judge enforces the law. But look at what's written here. It says makel, so explaining the instruments of the judges are makel, the stick, the sandal, the sandal, the shipura, and the trumpet, the gam kasher lama lo zires. So its question is, why didn't he tell them to be punctilious at that time? Excuse me one moment. Thank you. And in general, a non-muvu'ar minayin lemed inyan ziruz is what it's saying here. And where do you get this whole concept? Where do you derive this whole business of being punctilious? Ummahu lashon keneged. And also, when he says keneged, which means sort of in the face of, or opposite to, or in, regarding, right? Corresponding to, in the place of, which we had up here, right? We said in the statement here, keneged, right? In the place of, or in opposition to, or something like that, right? Corresponding to. So Torah Tamima has raised some questions here, which obviously.
Can I ask where did the sandal and Shipura come in?
Very good. He's going to talk about that a little later, but I'm happy to tell you. So the sandal, of course, is in a case of chalitza, that where a woman who is left a widow without any children, right? And there are brothers of that husband, of the deceased husband. And if she wants to perform, if the husband refuses to marry her, to perform chalitza, she removes the sandal off his foot. And there is a special sandal that is actually there. They actually have some antiquities of these sandals that the court used to be removed from the foot of the husband, of the brother, excuse me. So that's one of his instruments. And the shofar, remember, they needed to announce the yovel, right? So they would say, you show a sound through the yovel, the trumpet. So that's why these are the instruments. Aval emet, but truthfully, ni'eh bi'uro, if we can understand his interpretation, his explanation, al pi man de amar, by what is said in the Pesikta Rabati, if I'm not mistaken, the Pesikta Rabati is an extant midrash. Obviously, he's referring to one that's extant, and it's based on the holidays, the various special Shabbatot of the year, and the midrashim in the Pesikta Rabati are arranged to correspond and discuss each particular special Shabbat or festival, etc. Perek Lamed Gimel, chapter 33. Amar Rabbi Shabtai, said Rabbi Shabtai, Tzarich Hadayan, it is necessary for the judge, Sheyehe Lefi Hamakel, that he should be according to the stick, Lefi Haritzua, according to the strap, Lefi Mashahu, according to something, Shelo Yehehu Chashud, that he should not be suspect, right? V'hamakel v'haritzua gedolim, and the stick and the strap are large. So what does this mean, right? We puzzle after puzzle. V'habi'urhu, and the explanation of this is shelo yehe mishamesh hadayan behalkoto. So he should not, the judge should not use behalkoto when he gives out punishment, right? Lirdotbo letzorech atzmo, that he should punish, okay, or control, something like that, through it for his own personal need. That he shouldn't use these instruments of power for his own personal need. Veshelo yelke et mi she'eno yachol, and he should not punish, he shouldn't um, apply stripes, right? Shouldn't beat one she'eno yachol lispo hamalkot, and he shouldn't beat someone who would not be able to withstand these stripes. Ukamosha katuv b'midrash Rabbah, and is written as likewise is written in Midrash Rabbah, Dvarim Pei Perek Dvarim chapter 5. Shoftim v'shotrim, judges and officers, okay, v'chule, etc. Sheyu hamaasim, that the actions, right? Klomar hamaasim v'hamalkim, that is to say, the people who are acting as officers and who also are actually carrying out the sentences. In other words, who are applying the stripes, who are beating. Keneged hamakel v'haritzua. They have to correspond, I suppose we could say. That's what this word keneged means, right? The according to, the stick and the strap. V'shelo yehe hamaka or hamakeh, right? And that the one who is beating, tzarich lehilkot hu, that he himself deserves beating. Klomar, that is to say, de kesheyalke yoter midai, that is, that if he beats too much, or bertzua yoter gdola, or uses a larger strap, ukedome, and similar ideas, hare yitchayev hu malkot, he himself is going to be deserving of being beaten himself. Ukemosha katav or katuv the sifrei, and likewise as is written in the sifrei, that's the midrash, right, on Numbers and Deuteronomy, Perek Teitzei, on the Parsha of Ki Teitzei in Deuteronomy, Arba'im yakenu lo yosif. He should beat him with 40 stripes, but shall not add any more. That's the maximum number. She'im yosif, that is to say, that if he is given any additional stripes, over alotase, he is now contravening a negative commandment. Umevuar sham lefanenu, and there is explained before us, deshne ofane hosafot, okay, that there are two types of going too much, right, of adding on too much. I believe it says makavin sham, that's what they're implying there in that passage. Ha'achat, one of those is al hosafa al mispar arba'im, that is to do with adding beyond the 40. V'hashenit, and the second, im amduhu, if they estimated, she'iyevshar lehakotan rak mispar pachot me'arba'im, that they can only beat him a lesser number than the 40, that the court estimated in examining him, etc., that he would not be able to endure a 40, he would only be able to endure a lesser number. Tzarich hadayan ledaktek, the judge has to look very carefully, right? Shelo lo'osif, not to add ala mispar hama'umad, on the estimated amount. Excuse me, one more time. V'davar zeh tzarich zehirut, and when we're talking about this kind of thing, we need to be very careful. We need to be aware of this, right? Uzrizut yitera, an added measure of precaution. Uva alma, and in general, amrina, we say in Kiddushim, Tractate Kiddushim, page 29a, kol makom shene'emar tzav, that in any place where a commandment is preceded with the word tzav, eino ela ziruz. What it always means is to be punctilious, to be especially careful. V'lachein darshu kan, and for that reason, they interpreted here milashon va'etzaveh, right? From the use of the language, the expression va'atzaveh, and I saved, I commanded, et shoftechem, your judges, shetziva al zrizut, that he was commanding regarding being punctilious. Hanhagatam, they're in their behavior, bechli hadayane, when it came to the instruments of the judges, hainu, which is to say, b'makel, with the stick, uritzuva, and the strap, shelo yosifu al hamispar, that they should not add on the number hadarush that was required. Vaha umdana, and the estimation, hamima'etet et hamispar, which would reduce the number required, kamoshe katavti, just as I wrote. Vezehu halashon keneged makel veritzuah tehei zaris. And that is what we mean with this expression, opposite the stick and the strap, you shall be punctilious. Klomar, that is to say, sheyishaveh hadayan atzmo el hamakel v'haritzuah, that the judge should make himself equal, something like that, right? He should compare himself to the stick and the strap, sheyihiyeh lefi erech hamukah. So that, in other words, when he's making these considerations, like the stick, like the strap, he needs to take into consideration the constitution of the one being so punished, the one being beaten. Kamoshe katuv, as is written. V'halashon mechuvan el lashon shebemidrash rabbah. And this expression corresponds well to the language in Midrash Rabbah. V'ha'inyan, and the subject, el ha'inyan shebepsikta shehevenu. And also, when it's talking about this, the subject which was in the psikta that we quoted. V'nechagam, and it becomes clearer then, right? It's easier to understand now. Ma shelo tziva al zrizut yeter, that he did not command regarding extra care, klei hadayanim, zrizut al zrizut. He did not command regarding being punctilious, yeter klei hadayanim. Sorry, I missed the comma there. The remaining instruments of the judges, kamo sandal, like the sandal, the shofar, and the shofar, yan, because the lo shayach bahu ziruz, because they don't require this kind of extra care. Kamavuar vedok, as has been explained, vedok means QED, right? It is well explained. And that's it for now. And I'm going to stop the share. And any thoughts and any comments? I just love.
What happened to the? So I just want to ask, what happened to the earlier claim that the judges had to be especially I don't know what the word is.
Careful.
Dedicated to their job because the generation was so rebellious and difficult.
Right. So I think he rejects that. He puts that into question. He was not comfortable with that interpretation from the Chidushei Agadot. He says it doesn't make sense. So what he does is he questions it and explains why he's questioning that, and then gives another explanation, which he hopes makes more sense than what is written there in the Chidushei Agadot. At least that's how I'm understanding it. So I loved this particular Torah T'mima because it talked about not abusing power, the power of judges. And I thought you might enjoy seeing how the application of Jewish law and halakha is developed. I mean, we are just scratching the surface, which I think you understand at this point, but at least a little bit different. Obviously, it's a different approach from what we generally read when we read Rashi. I'm going to start.
How,
Yeah, go ahead. Please.
how do the judges, make the a point of punishment? I mean, you say 40 times they, but they could do it less and less. How do they judge the person that did the wrong thing? How do they judge them, them like that? I mean,
Right. Okay. So it's a good question. I think what they would have to do is get some medical advice. They might get psychological advice. The point is that this is an estimation, and you take whatever precautions you need to take, because this is not a death sentence. Incidentally, it is equivalent to one. And of course, 40 is a lot of stripes, but they want people to obey the law. They want people to take this seriously, and that's why they have these kinds of possibilities out there. But at the same time, what we're being told very clearly is that this isn't necessarily the number of stripes a person is going to get, right? It may be 6, it may be less, but they do believe in corporal punishment. At least this system feels that it's an effective way to get people to observe the law. Yeah, Lauren.
So this is just a translation issue, but because I had been told that zerizut meant something like zeal or alacrity.
Yeah, it is.
But punctilious, I like that better, but they're almost conflicting.
Really?
Because 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 alacrity, kind of talks about the exuberance for which you rush to do a mitzvah, for instance. But punctilious is really about being thorough, and sometimes that's a little more deliberate and slow than rushing to do something with exuberance. It's more like paying attention to every little detail and making sure you've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's.
Right.
So to me, it's not the same definition, and I'm a little confused.
Okay, so I do understand alacrity to mean, putting your heart into it, okay? And I definitely think that zerus does mean punctilious, that you should be careful. There is a statement, for example, in Pirkei Avot that says, Hevei metunim badim, which is a advice to the judges, which means it's translated as be deliberate in judgment, right? But alacrity can involve what you're saying, and that's the exuberance and speed. It sounds like it. I don't know that alacrity always has to do with speed. All right. I think it has to do with.
It might be a difference between Hebrew of the period we're reading and modern Hebrew, because in modern Hebrew, zeruz really, it's the term, for example, that's used when a woman is given a shot to speed up labor.
Okay.
It has to do with speed.
Okay. Well, we know that there is speed necessary in one sense, right? Justice delayed, right, is justice denied. But that's not what it's talking about here. Here it's talking seriously about being very, very careful about what you're doing.
So I guess,
yeah.
I mean, it still sounds a little conflicting, but maybe what they have in common is that you really care about the instructions and the mitzvah.
Right.
So that caring could lead towards your, exuberance and quickness, and it can lead also to your thoroughness.
Right. But clearly what it's saying is, I don't think any judge should be exuberant about inflicting punishment. Yeah, go ahead.
I can't understand is if somebody kills somebody accidentally, what happens then?
Well, we read some of those laws at the end of Book of Numbers, okay? All right? So there you have to look at the circumstances. It's not murder. If it's accidental, then we had this, at least in the Torah, we had the notion of the cities of refuge, okay? Again, taking someone's life is a very, very serious thing, even if it's accidental. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing. And of course, anyone who's a halfway decent person is affected deeply, even if they never intended it. It's to have that on your conscience is terrible. So At any rate, that's it for today. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording.